Today on Locked On Canadiens, can you call up a coach? Should the Canadiens try to go for Jordan Kyrou or maybe Rob Thomas? All that and more in our special holiday mailbag.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. We thank you all for making that happen. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. My name is Laura Saba, also known as The Active Stick, and today I'm not joined by my wonderful co-host Ian Boisvert. It is the holiday week. I am actually away, so at the time that you're listening to this, it's Friday, it's Boxing Day. I'm in Europe with my parents, so anything that I mentioned today, hopefully it has not changed by the time you are listening to this. We collected a bunch of mailbag questions before the holidays, and they're, if you have been listening this week, you'll know there's a little bit of a jumble with our regular schedule. Ian had something crazy come up at work. He's unfortunately too important at his day job, and I'm away. So this is the holiday mailbag, and we're going to go through as many of these questions as I can possibly go through within the time that we have. And another note, as you know, we normally do daily trivia, but because these episodes were all recorded, not in real time, like out of sync, we've put trivia on hold. It will be back for the Monday episode of Monday, Jan 29. So that's when we will both be back in the chair. And so hopefully, unless my flight gets canceled or delayed, which I really hope not, because I really want to be back with you guys. All right, I'm going to start with good friend of the show, Jalen, on Instagram. If you could have one player other than Gavin McKenna or Michael Misa off the World Junior Championship rosters, who would it be? Obviously, the reason Gavin McKenna, not gettable, or everybody would say that, right? Michael Misa is the second person that everybody would say. So he kind of made it a bit harder for us. And my answer is TJ Ginla, because we studied him very closely when it looked like he might end up being drafted by the Canadiens a little while ago. I want to say it's not last draft, but the one before. I feel like it might be the last draft. Anyways, he's somebody, I think it's the last draft, actually. He's somebody that I really fell in love with the way that he is, the way that he plays, and kind of the I want to call it gumption. Determination is maybe a really good word to describe him. So that's why he is my pick. Moving on, Daniel B, also on Instagram. I love Marty, but if John Cooper becomes available, would you go after him? So I think that the question is, would you fire Marty for him? And I don't think the Canadiens would be willing to do that. But if they were in a situation where things were not going well and John Cooper became available, I think that they would inquire. I feel like John Cooper, for all his smugness and like he's a very annoying person, he is one of the better coaches in the NHL. He knows how to take a good team to multiple championships or multiple finals and multiple championships. So you definitely inquire, kind of like what happened with Terrian and Julian. But, if Marty, and we have another Marty question actually coming up. So I think for me, the Canadiens are not going to move on from Marty until a certain point, and I will answer that question a little bit later. But if John Cooper becomes available, you have to ask the question. And also, I know the French thing is a big deal. So, you kind of have to figure out a way around that. And so I do believe he does speak a little bit of French, but you can keep me honest on that. From what I remember, I don't think that's true. All right. We've got a question from Marty P over in the UK. If you could arrange for Martin St. Louis to wake up with a player from another NHL team under his Christmas tree who could play for the Habs the rest of this season, who would it be? For me, it's a no-brainer. It's Nathan MacKinnon. I think, today's the day after Christmas when you're listening to this, but this was a Christmas mailbag question. I think Nathan MacKinnon is an absolute no-brainer. I'm not even looking at, I also thought about goalies. I was like, I'm going to look up who has the best goalie stats, and that's who Marty wants, but no. You want Nathan MacKinnon on this team. Mark C. How come so few broadcasts are willing to acknowledge the holes the Habs roster has due to injuries? So I think that's actually a really great point, because we I think in broadcasts, what I listen to, there's a lot of what is wrong with the Leafs. And there's not a whole lot of what is wrong with the Canadiens. It's more like, oh, the Canadiens are underperforming, right? I also think that goaltending has taken on an outsize importance because it's a combination of things. It's not just the fact that they're missing a center, a defense, like a key defenseman, a key center, right? A key winger who can also play a center and is also very fast. Like they're missing a lot of speed. That's part of it. But the goaltending has just been the focus has been so much on the poor goaltending. The Canadiens not getting league average goaltending. It has gotten better in recent games. But, overall, that's more the story. The story is what's going on. What's wrong with Sam Montembeault? Why is he being sent down? Why can't he play? What happened to him? All of that. That's really where the story is focused. And I think a lot of broadcast media too has to be generalist because, we're Habs fans. We're watching every Habs game. And we are more often than not watching local broadcasts, right? For me, it's definitely, I do RDS, the Monday night, Prime Monday Night Hockey. That's actually like a really good English language broadcast. And and then otherwise for me, it's RDS. And if RDS is not available, I don't watch TVA Sport. I'll watch like whatever the English broadcast that is available is. I really think that it's like a massive cliff, like it like fall off a cliff from RDS's quality. So it just really bothers me. Anyways, I went around. We're Habs fans. We're very focused on this team. We live and die by this team. They are our team. We know all the ins and outs. We know all the stats. We know who's doing well. We know who isn't, right? But a lot of broadcast media on, let's say on Hockey Night in Canada or the ESPN broadcast, those are national broadcasts a lot of the time, and they have to be a bit more generalist because most often the people who are watching those broadcasts are not us. Like we are watching, we're watching our local, like really in tune broadcasts, and it's kind of like what we do here. As a Montreal Canadiens podcast, right? We're really getting into Montreal Canadiens day after day after day after day. So a lot of times you'll listen to a more general hockey show and they might not have the same perspective that we do, or, somebody like Eric Engels does, or somebody like Marco D'Amico does, right? We're all like very, very much woven into the Canadiens community and not really and so like when it's like a national show, a national podcast talking about the Habs, sometimes it can feel a little bit superficial or a little bit generalist. And I think the audience of those podcasts too, right? Like they have to kind of reach every hockey market. So there is a little bit of minimizing, generalizing, that kind of stuff. That was a very long-winded answer. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get on my soapbox about that. All right. So we've got a question from Nico R that I think is really, really interesting. What is the likelihood of landing a Tage Thompson or a Robert Thomas, and what would the cost be? I think that Buffalo right now is a little bit of an unknown quantity with the change in management. I believe, I don't know if it's fully confirmed yet, but Dave Pagnotta the other day had that Marc Bergevin was going to go to Buffalo to be an AGM there. And if that's kind of the talent assessment that they have over there, I don't necessarily think that Tage Thompson is an absolute pipe dream. I do think it's possible that he does get put on the market, or at the very least, they listen to offers. Problem with a guy like Tage Thompson is everybody wants him, right? There are very few teams that don't need him or want him. So the likelihood is pretty low just based on probability, right? On everyone else, like what's available. Robert Thomas is interesting because I do think the Blues are going to become hardcore sellers not very long from now. And I just don't know if they will be willing to trade with the Montreal Canadiens. I don't know, with the way that the Bolduc Logan Mailloux trade has gone, I don't know if they're willing to talk to the Canadiens anymore or to listen to offers from the Canadiens. And, I could be way off base and wrong on that. But even if he becomes available, I feel like Montreal is very low on the list of people that the Blues are picking up phone calls from. All right. This has been the first segment of our holiday mailbag. I'm trying to get through as many of these questions as I possibly can. And I will get through some more. Here's another question. It's about Pascal Vincent, Jordan Kyrou. We've got a lot coming up, so stick around because there is a plenty of mailbag coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch. It's finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You just pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. The seat view feature is a game changer. You literally see what the pitch looks like from your exact seat before you buy. And prices include fees up front, which I love. No last second surprises at checkout. Here at Locked On Canadiens, we have used Game Time to go to many hockey games, and we find the seat view, the pricing, all of that. We find that it is really just the best way. So now that the World Cup is coming, Game Time is going to be your go-to. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Game Time. Thank you for making Locked On Canadiens your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. Go to lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. We have access to ad-free audio feed for Locked On Canadiens, and it's compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. You also get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. And we are so excited to meet you guys at the Discord, so please sign up. Like I said, go to lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com to join our Everydayer Club. All right, let's get back into our lovely mailbag questions. This one comes from Mark L. If goalies and players can be sent up and down, can coaches be called up? For example, Pascal Vincent comes up to see if the players will listen to a different voice, or maybe in terms of goaltending coaches. So it's actually a really fun and intriguing idea. I've never seen that particular thing happen. What normally happens is, let's say the head coach is sick or is unable to join the team, et cetera, et cetera. It'll usually go to one of the associate or assistant coaches that's at the NHL level. And then somebody from the AHL might get called up to be like an interim assistant or associate coach. Like, we've seen that happen a lot. We've seen it happen here too. Last year, Marty had a personal reason where he had to leave the team, and the assistant coaches took care of the team. I've never seen a situation where the AHL coach gets called up just like that. Like, most of the time it's as a replacement, like they become the interim head coach when a coach gets fired or something like that. But I think it's a really fun idea. You just kind of call up the coach and let him have a cup of coffee. Now, the reverse probably wouldn't work. You can't send a head coach or an NHL associate coach to your AHL team for conditioning. That doesn't work. So we are also, I will point out, we're getting a lot of Marty questions right now. There's a lot of questions about Marty. We have addressed kind of, is Marty a good coach or not, in a previous episode we did last week, I believe. And I think that it's a little bit premature. But I did kind of want to talk about Pascal Vincent for a hot minute because I was very curious as to what happened, what went wrong with Pascal Vincent in Columbus, because it went so wrong in Columbus, right? It was so not good. And I think, when he came back to Laval, a lot of people were apprehensive about that. So now this is not Mark L's question, but specifically I wanted to get a little bit into that, is I asked our good friend Jay Foster from Locked On Blue Jackets, I was like, what exactly went wrong? And essentially it boils down to, he was put into a position to fail. He was not allowed to be his own coach, and he panicked because of the expectations. And I think that the general feeling was that he had to be kind of like a more old school coach that's really hard on people, kind of like, John Tortorella or Mike Babcock, things like that. You kind of lose the room in that case. It's not confirmed. This is just kind of Jay's feeling. And then the conclusion is basically he wasn't ready to be an NHL head coach. He got the job with 4 days notice before training camp even started. And there's a lot of panic and overcorrection because he started, way behind and out of his depth, and it just kind of got worse. But he does have the potential to be an NHL head coach, maybe in the right situation. Now, that wasn't the question, but the question was essentially, could you call a coach up? I think that would be fun, is just to like give coaches like a cup of coffee and be like, hey, you've been doing really great. We want to, we want to see what you've got at the NHL level. I think that would be really funny. But most of the time it happens when someone gets fired. All right. Our good friend of the show, Carm. Given that the value has dropped, is now a good time to go out and grab Jordan Kyrou? I gotta say, I feel like personally for me, they've been a little bit cagey about the injury situation, the health situation. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. But earlier in this episode, I did say that it's possible that the Blues will not pick up a phone call from the Montreal Canadiens. I also think that they might no longer be interested, because it feels like with the Montreal Canadiens, they've kind of got they've got a whole bunch of players, and like a lot of them are just not what they want or need at this point, right? You've got some guys who are they've solidified their place on this team. They're not going anywhere. And then you've got guys who you're hoping will work out. And then you've got some guys that are just kind of like their bodies, and you're seeing what works, right? So I feel like with Jordan Kyrou, immensely talented, it would bring a lot to the Montreal Canadiens, but I feel like the Canadiens might be hesitant to just like look at a guy and be like, okay, well, I don't know where he fits, so I'm not going to really sell the farm on trying to get that guy. That's just my feeling. I don't know if I'm way off base or not, but that's where I'm at. Okay. Next question, Dominic J. This is all on Instagram, by the way. I love these Instagram questions. Like, it's fantastic. Like, I love that you guys are interacting with us on there as well. Instagram is actually my favorite app. We are also on Blue Sky and on TikTok, but I'm definitely an Instagram girly. That's usually me that's interacting with you on there. So it's definitely, I feel like we've kind of found our niche a little bit. Like, Ian is more the Blue Sky and the YouTube, and I'm more the TikTok and the Instagram. And we're just kind of, really, really enjoying getting to know you guys there and communicating with you guys there. All right, back to the mailbag. Dominic J. With the Hughes brothers saga over, would you like to see Montreal explore a trade to acquire the Hudson brothers from Edmonton and Washington? What would a realistic package look like? Also, I'll beat the Buffalo game at the end of Jan. So Ian and I don't actually know. I can't confirm Ian's not going to be there, but I'm definitely not going to be at the Buffalo game at the end of Jan. So I will, Scott, if you're listening to this, if you want to listen, if you want to grab a beer with a listener of the podcast you used to host, let us know, and I'll put you in touch with Dominic. Back to the Hudson brothers. I don't know if I'm 100% right on this, but I feel like with the Hughes brothers, the level of talent was much more comparable. Like, there's obviously like the best one, and then like the others, but like but they're all just kind of fully at an elite level. And I think that before I would trade for Hudson brothers, I would want to see if they are also at the elite level of Lane Hudson. Like, for me, when I look at Lane Hudson, I look at a guy and I'm like, this guy's going to be a superstar in the league, right? Like, we are already now in his second year in the NHL talking about comparisons to Cale Makar. And so I feel like I would want there would be a Hudson brothers saga if their talent level was also comparable. But somehow I don't think that Montreal is necessarily looking for that. I feel like Montreal has a lot of issues, and very few of them are going to be solved by trying to reunite the Hudson brothers. But it would be really cute. It would be great. I love that. All right. Up next, there's plenty more questions. I have my work cut out for me. I'm going to have to really rush through them. But I'm really excited to talk about all this stuff, including, will the Montreal Canadiens trade either Joshua Roy or Owen Beck? And we'll be talking about that in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scorers, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. I myself love to use FanDuel because NFL Sundays are really long. We got to admit that sometimes, some of the games aren't all that great, but as soon as something shifts, you want to get in on the action. You really want that feeling of like watching sports and living and dying by your team. So definitely, if you want to be in the middle, if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, we are in our final segment. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us for this special Boxing Day episode that I recorded on the Sunday before leaving for Europe. And so this is like a 5-day-old episode. So if anything has changed, I know there's a roster freeze, but if anything has changed since then, I do apologize in advance. Well, I guess you're going back in time. Anyways, KCD asks, will either Joshua Roy or Owen Beck be traded? Joshua Roy, I think, is almost certain to be traded. Maybe not right away, but I do feel like the Montreal Canadiens do not see a role for him. However, I do think the Montreal Canadiens do see a role for Owen Beck. I think it's like a matter of how patient Owen Beck is willing to be before becoming like a full-time NHLer, because he has been part of the Canadian system and he's played his rookie game, his first game, like an emergency call was like years ago at this point. So I don't know how patient he's going to be, but he has, I will say, of late in his last call up, he's looked fantastic. He has looked, we commented in the preseason and early in the season, he kind of looked over it. We commented in some of the AHL games, he kind of looked over it, but no, he's really bringing the heat. And we love that. And I don't think that the Montreal Canadiens are going to move on from them. Speaking of moving on, Jason A asks, at what point do we need to start talking about moving on from Martin St. Louis? I think we move on from Martin St. Louis, or the Canadiens will be willing to entertain the idea of moving on from Martin St. Louis if he leads the Canadiens to the playoffs and can't get past a certain point. I think right now we do need to acknowledge this team is still in rebuild. They do have a lot of injuries. Their goaltending has been abysmal. Not all of them, not all the time, but it's been a major sticking point for the Habs. It's been a major hurdle for the Habs. But I think that the front office is not willing to even think about moving on from Martin St. Louis until he has proven that he can't make it happen in the playoffs. Once they have a contending roster or roster they feel that can contend, one too many playoff exits, that's when we start talking about him. But they're not going to be ready. I know a lot of fans are ready to talk about this, but I'm not in full agreement with them. I think Martin St. Louis has room to grow, but I don't think that it's like a situation where it's like, oh, it's time for him to go. No, absolutely not. He's the right coach for this team at this time. And he's actually a pretty good coach if you look around the league. And I think it was someone in Reddit that kind of had pulled a chart of like the improvement over the season. And it was stark. Anyways, I think that a lot of people are tired of losses, but I don't think that most of them can be hung on Martin St. Louis' shoulders. I think in-game tactical decisions sometimes we do question, but I'm just saying I don't think it's time, and I don't think the Canadiens are willing to entertain that. So Logan T asks, Eric Engels recently said he believes Slaf might move to C when everyone is healthy. Thoughts? What would be the ideal combination? My question is kind of why, because I feel like the Canadiens kind of have a center logjam, but they don't have the right center. And I don't know if you would try to take Slafkovský, who played center a very long time ago, and try to like stick that, square peg round, whatever it is, whatever the expression is. I don't know why you would do that if what you really need is actually like actual centers, natural centers, who are able to keep up with the rest of the team and fit into this lineup. I also really like what Slafkovsky's doing as a winger, to be honest. Okay. Bladen, how much longer does Martin St. Louis keep experimenting with Bolduc on the first line and give Texier a shot to play with Caulfield and Suzuki? And where does Texier stay if he plays well and the rest of the team gets healthy? That's a really good question. We've been advocating for Martin St. Louis to try him on the first line, but Bolduc playing well as he is, it's not going to be a long-term. I don't think it's going to be something that happens a lot. It might happen in in-game situations. So I don't know how long, especially with Bolduc having that 2-goal game the other night, and being really strong in the last game that I've watched was the Pittsburgh game at the Bell Center. So that's where all my information is. So by the time you listen to this, it might be obsolete. Bill Van V. Hey, crew. I was watching the Habs defeat the Blackhawks and watching the power play and had a thought. Has Marty ever thought of, in either unit, putting Arbor in front of the net and screen and causing havoc for the opposition goalie? To put in context, have him play a role like Thomas Holmstrom or back in the day Tim Kerr used to have. Screen, take a beating, and scoop up some rebounds. Now, I realize Arbor has a much more limited offensive touch, but this role, I feel, can be taught. I remember Thomas Holmstrom because I just always remember watching and just being like, why is that guy's butt in the way? And I like what you're talking about. I just feel that you should be doing that with Slafkovský, rather like a body like Slafkovský rather than Arbor. I just think it would be really also really funny if they just put Arbor Xhekaj on the power play and then you just started scoring goals. But I do think that his offensive gifts are too limited for that. Our good friend Randy Hansen. I love thrift store shopping. What is the best find you have from the thrift store garage sale world? I have a Price jersey. So that's a score for Randy. At an estate sale, I once got a designer purse, and it was something that I will never be able to afford in my daily life. Obscenely expensive, and I got it for like a couple $100. It was incredible. And then I ended up giving it to my mom. But thrift stores, amazing. It's also like a really good way to kind of cut down on the consumerist and like overly consumption based society that we have, like reuse things, regift things, and also donate, because there's a lot of people that need that stuff. And a lot of these places that you donate to, when people buy, like they will give the money to charitable causes. So really big on the thrift store world. Our good friend Categrins on Blue Sky. The Habs are camping. What is everyone's job? Setting up the tent, cooking, etc. I feel like the setting up of the tent is going to be somebody like Arbor Xhekaj and Jaden Struble. I don't even know if it's like their gifts. I think they're large and they can just kind of, do it faster than everybody. I feel like the person who does the cooking is probably Josh Anderson on a grill, on a portable grill. And then all the other guys just go fishing and play cards. Maybe Nick Suzuki is in charge of lighting the fire, getting the firewood, all that kind of stuff. But I see Mike Matheson kind of not bossing everyone, being the dad and like assigning the roles and everything like that. And 100% they're going to make the rookies go and take the compostable toilet and empty that or take it back to like wherever. When you go on a campground and sometimes you have to like bring it to like the whatever and get a new portable toilet. Anyways, I did not mean to go down that road on the holiday mailbag. Our good friend Blaine Potvin. Which player would give the best Secret Santa gift? I think it would be Mike Matheson. Unless you're like, if you're talking about like the spouses being involved, like then it could be anybody. But like in terms of like organically, that's the person who picked it. I think it would be Mike Matheson. And then Adam Yu. Which player is most likely to give a not safe for work gift, even to someone like Marty? I feel like Juraj Slafkovský would find that funny. I feel like he's in that maturity level where he like would really find that hilarious. So he's the one. Nathaniel asks, is Nick injured? His skating seems off. Should he take a break or just play through it? He's not going to take a break or play through it. He's not going to take a break. He's going to play through it. But I do think there is something going on. His skating does seem off, and it does feel like it's his ribs. I know Ian and I talked about it couple of weeks ago. Ian was not super convinced, but I'm still convinced it's something, in the rib cage area, and he is playing through it. And he, like, unfortunately is not going to take a night off. Like, even if the Montreal Canadiens tie him up to a chair, stick it in the closet, lock the closet, put like a bunch of equipment and chairs in front of it, he's going to find his way out so he can get on the ice. Speaking of Nick Suzuki, congratulations to him and Caitlin. They announced that they are having a baby girl, but I do feel that even that is not going to cause Nick Suzuki to miss a second of game action. Hopefully, he will be able to be a dad. Boondoggle and some of the Ryans asked us some very thoughtful questions that I'm not going to get to because I am out of time. However, they are some really good questions where I could create segments out of them, and Ian is going to abandon me once again at some point in early January. So if your name is Ryan, Rye, or boondoggle. Your mailbag questions will be tackled in a early January episode, I promise. That is it for our holiday mailbag. I want to thank you all for bearing with me. I feel like I haven't taken a breath. I've been talking for 30 minutes straight without taking a break, but I really do appreciate this. As we said, trivia is going to be back next week. Yes, next week. By the time that you're listening to this, it's the Monday episode. We hope you had a really wonderful time with your holiday, with your family, over the holidays. Thank you again for listening to this episode. Thank you, as always, for supporting Locked On Canadiens. We're almost at the end of the year, and I feel like next year is going to be like our biggest year, and the Montreal Canadiens are going to be able to get back on track and figure it out. We're going to have such a fun year. The Olympics are coming up. We have so much to talk about. So make sure you are subscribed to our podcast. Thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Canadiens. Next week, we will be back to our regular schedule with trivia, etc., etc. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Canadiens so you get all the latest episodes. You can also find us on social media. We're in Blue Sky, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked On Canadiens. You can email us at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. And if you still need a last-minute holiday gift or someone keeps asking what you want, make it easy. Ask for the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com. And for those of you on video, we're sending you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure you make your second listen NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. I want to thank you all so much for listening, and we will be back sort of regular to our regular schedule on Monday.